We're going to get started here in a moment. I'm going to call the Henry County Council meeting to order for July 10th, 2024. If you'd please stand with us. We'll have a pledge and a short prayer, please. A couple of additions to the agenda. Joel, I believe, is on Zoom, last I heard. Corey, we're going to add him right after the approval of the last month's minutes. And Angela Cox is here. We'll probably insert her right after the approval of the opioid expenditures and before Shannon does an overview of the lit hearing on the 25th. Okay, council, have you received the minutes from Debbie?
We're handing the minutes across now, the updated
Well,
minutes.
how timely of a question. I have a copy. Okay. You are soon to have the minutes. They were emailed earlier this week. Hopefully you have had a chance to read over those. I did. I did not see any errors, but if you did, time to speak up.
I did, and I sent corrections to Debbie. And I will try to review my corrections. The meeting was opened with the pledge led by Betsy. Prayer was given by myself, not Susan, last month. Joe Copeland, I added the word presented. A few more paragraphs down, a motion was made by Susan Hune, seconded by, not me, it was seconded by Betsy. And a couple of paragraphs below that, motion was made by Susan Hune, seconded by Shannon Tone to approve the compliance statement of benefits, real estate improvements for Boar's Head. The words for Boar's Head were added into that sentence, other than a few other little related to and INGs added on. That was it. And you got a copy of the corrected minutes handed to you.
Okay. Any others? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from June.
So moved.
Moved by Betsy. Is there a second? Mike, seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. Harold's not here currently. Okay, Corey, you are officially inserted.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to give you a brief update. I handed out at the beginning of the meeting our regional magazine. It's used for talent attraction, recruitment, also marketing to ourselves in terms of all the great things, not only in Henry County, but in the surrounding areas. That is connected to the same entity that is taking the lead on READY. So that's the East Central Indiana Regional Partnership, or also known as 4GCI. So I wanted to make sure you had a copy of that magazine. In regards to Ready 2 and the scoring, I believe I reported at your last meeting. I've been to a lot of public meetings lately that kind of run together. But I believe I reported to you, or I sent you an email that said there is a portal open on 4gci.com. All the projects that were submitted in the open call for projects last fall received an invitation. That invitation came via email from Trevor Friedeberg saying that you have until August 2nd to go into that portal and answer the questions. The purpose of the questions are to confirm project scope, alignment with the goals. The region received 170 requests. We have nowhere near the money to fund 170 requests. This is not another open call. However, if there's a really competitive project out there and maybe they missed it, they too are welcome to go in and complete the questionnaire. Once this portal closes on August 2nd, the region is going to score all of the applications. The rubric that we're using to score is on that same website. Each county has 2 members on the regional steering committee. The 2 members from Henry County are myself and Jennifer Fox from the Community Foundation. We're going to invite, each county is going to invite 3 additional members to score. The targeted invitation or the targeted demographic for those participants are elected officials. I appeared before the commissioners this morning and asked one of them to volunteer, and so Commissioner Plummer is going to score. And I want to make the same request of you. Last fall, Councilmember Gray scored, but I want to make sure you're still interested, or maybe one of your colleagues wants to do the work instead. And then I'll be looking to the city. So 2 countywide elected officials and a city government representative.
I would be happy to do so. Just for clarification, when you said Kenan Gray scored, I want the media to know what you meant.
I'm lost.
Good.
Okay. All right, I'm slow on the uptake. So would you like him to be volunteered to invite to participate in the scoring?
Yes, thank you, Kenan.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, appreciate it. That'll be in mid-August. Probably a short time frame. So thank you and apologies in advance.
Yeah, it's a very short time frame in November as well.
Yeah. Out of that scoring or ranking, then there'll be another discussion, right? I mean, so the scoring is not the end all be all, but it is a significant tool to make decisions on what projects are taken to the regional board, which is different than the steering committee. So the steering committee will make a recommendation to the regional board of directors. So that's the governing body for Trevor. It's its own separate 501c3. That board will act on those recommendations, and then that list is taken to the state. I anticipate, I anticipate this happening before the end of the year, which leads me to this. I think it's time to get to the Food and Beverage Advisory Committee together, if that is necessary, to make a recommendation on ready projects and the use of food and beverage as a potential match. I want to be ahead of the game if it's required to get the advisory committee together to review those projects, as opposed to be scrambling in August or September to get the committee together. And so I wanted to put that before you today. Maybe you don't take action on that today. Maybe you need time to think about it. And I come back at your meeting at the end of the month.
So
But you-
the advisory committee will look at the scoring done and they will make a final list.
So when I say the advisory committee here, the Henry County projects that survive, and not all of them are going to survive, but the Henry County projects that survive for Ready to funding, one of the significant threshold criteria, not at this stage, but probably sometime in September or October is their local match? Is it available? In other words, is it a viable project? And I want to be able to, on behalf of projects in Henry County, if we're going to use food and beverage, and if we have to use the Food and Beverage Advisory Committee, I want to be able to get the committee together and say, here's what's under consideration.
So who will make the list that the Food and Beverage Advisory Committee will look
The
at?
regional group.
Regional group. So would we want the Food and Beverage Advisory Committee to be able to influence the list that came from the regional group?
They won't be able to influence. It would be, do you support the use of, or do you recommend the use of food and beverage funds as a match for this project?
Okay.
I hope we don't have to use the advisory committee.
That was my question is, before the advisory committee accepted and reviewed all kinds of proposals and did that narrowing down process, right?
That was an open call.
Right.
Like a grant round.
This has already been narrowed down to a specific few, unless we're required by law to have their input. And I guess Joel is with us via Zoom. I will make a motion if Joel agrees that it's not required. If it's required, then we need to do it. Joel, can you provide some input?
Yeah, I texted him today with that very question, anticipating that you might be up here asking where are we at on food and beverage and possible use. We brought that up in a work session in April. Your
That's-
comment then was, I kind of hope we don't, and Joel's comment was, I don't think you have to. I wrote him today, said, I will ask today how to handle us committing to most of our, by next summer, 2.5 million in food and beverage as required Ready 2.0 public match money in light of the law regarding our Food and Beverage Advisory Committee. So he's been given a heads up. Joe, are you on?
I am on, yeah, and the statute provides for the creation of this committee to provide advice to the county council about what to do with food and beverage funds. It doesn't specifically require that it provide advice with respect to every single expenditure of food and beverage funds. So I think you could approve expenditures without getting the advice of the Food and Beverage Committee prior to. Or I think alternatively, you could simply ask the Food and Beverage Committee if they want to, send you an email or write a letter as to whatever thoughts an individual member of the committee may have as to an expenditure. They're welcome to do so. And I think that would clearly satisfy any requirement of providing input on it. But I don't think you have to formally convene the Food and Beverage Committee and get a vote as a committee as a whole before making any kind of expenditure.
So who should draft a letter to them that conveys the intent of the council?
So we have the option of requesting some type of email feedback from them. Is what Joel said, but we're not required to. Is that what?
Yeah.
I think, may I interject?
Yeah.
As a member of the Food and Beverage Committee, but I have intimate knowledge of the projects. The other members of the Food and Beverage Committee don't. And so if I was in their position, be like, you want me to do what? Thank you for asking, but I don't have any context. I don't have any feedback. I mean, we would provide them with the information.
So I was kind of getting to the same place. After it goes through the whole
Yeah.
process and goes, back to the regional planning, it seems to me like the council would be ready to vote on it. So I'll second Shannon's motion.
Which was again,
To forego seeking the advice of the Food and Beverage Advisory Committee, seeing that the majority of the work will be done by the Ready Committee in narrowing down projects, then Corey can bring those selected projects to the council.
any discussion? Mine would being that you were vice chair, I believe, the last time around.
Yeah.
Would you at least communicate with them so there's no apprehension that we're
Sure.
trying to circumvent them in case someone thinks that it's the law they be involved in food and beverage? That we're not? Because I think you're in a good position having that knowledge to convey that we're not trying to circumvent anything.
Yes, I'll send an email.
Any other discussion? There's a motion that I don't want to use the word circumvent again, that we forego using the Food and Beverage Advisory Committee in this particular context that you shared. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Now it's 7-0. Welcome, Harold. Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the work you're doing on that. I know there's a lot of work involved. Having attended numerous meetings and
Tremendous opportunity to bring resources to the county.
much more so than 2 years ago. And just as a footnote, you have a meeting coming up addressing Ready 1.0 projects with a couple of projects that are maybe lagging behind, and I'm not available on August 16th. And
No,
I
July
asked-
16th.
So that's what I meant. Thank you. And Kyle has agreed to serve in that capacity because 2 years ago, I wasn't able to attend one of the meetings that you held, I think at the REMC. And he, being a month into this position, filled in for me. And being from Knightstown, it's probably relevant.
So to provide context to his comments, Ready One money, just like your ARPA money, we have to obligate that or spend it by the end of the year. But since this is Ready One is coming to this through the state has indicated that we have until September 30th. We can't make any changes after September 30th. So in their portal, literally an upload to access the Ready One funding, there are no edits possible after September 30th. Well, right now, the State Road 109 infrastructure is an approved project. It remains unclear to me whether that project is going to move forward at a pace sufficient enough to claim the Ready money. I'm not saying that the project may not happen. I'm saying it may not happen at a pace ready to draw down the funding. So I pulled together what I call, this is informal, and it's not a quorum of anything, but it's the Ready One Leadership Group. It's a representative from this body. It's a representative from the county commissioners. It's a city council person. It's the mayor. It's the town of Middletown, town of Knightstown, the hospital, and the community foundation. If you remember, there was an entry fee to Ready One, and the entry fee was 30 grand. Those entities all contributed towards that 30 grand. That body basically picked the projects for Henry County in 2022. I'm coming back to them to find a replacement project. Because what I don't want to happen is we lose the $975,000. Because I guarantee you, my friends in the neighboring counties will say, if you can't use it, we can. And I don't want to lose those resources for our community. So that's kind of the full story on that meeting next week. Because it'll take some time to find a replacement project, go through the process to get it approved into the portal, get it obligated, and then we can move forward. And I've been in constant communication with the town of Knightstown, asking for information in regards to their project. So this shall not be a surprise to them.
Being on your executive committee, there's also another project that was lagging behind in Newcastle. Is that also going to be on their agenda next week on the 6th?
No, so we had 4 projects, 2 of them are moving forward just fine. The 2 that are of concern in terms of timing was the 109 project and then the YMCA project. And the YMCA project, I think they're gonna be okay in terms of being able to claim the money.
Good. Good to know. Thank you very much, Corey, and again, for all your work. Next, we have the actual official approval of the Solid Waste Management District. We addressed it, but our timing was out of kilter in late June. So once again, to be official, we need to approve an additional appropriation that we have discussed before. It's before you in your packet of $90,560.45. And it'll need to be signed. So before you leave today, we'll need to sign off on this, council. Do you have any questions or a motion?
Motion to approve the additional appropriation.
Moved by Susan, seconded by Mike. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Approval of opioid expenditures. I know I've listened to this either on the commissioners meeting or I think it was the commissioners meeting I listed. And this is approval of expenditures of revenue, the abatement share, which is the restricted portion of the opioid settlement funds. It's number 7. The sum of $30,000, which if I'm not mistaken from memory is half of what Bruce Aaron had requested for the commissioners to pay for a portion of the cost of further repair and replacement of a portion of the roof on the building utilized by the guest house, which is an approved program under the rules of the opioid settlement. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Susan to approve, seconded by Shannon. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. And I think we inserted Angela after the opioid expenditures. And she has a request, and I believe she gave you a handout right before the meeting.
Just quick and easy, the 1168 health maintenance account, which they're calling legacy money, since we have accepted the Health First Indiana funds, will sundown December 31st, so we need to spend that by then. I've already moved our operating expenses over into the HFI money, and we're in good shape there. I've been waiting on the EMA office to be able to be vacated in our building and move to their new abode. And so I've been hoping that I could hold on to this money long enough to do some much needed updating of that office so I can move the environmental health staff and the public birth and death record. What is she? Registrar. The registrar office into the south end of the Masonic building on the first floor. So in order to do that, I'm asking your permission to take the sum of all the scattered line items in the 1168 account, and with the assistance of the auditor, move them to the appropriate line item. It may be capital outlays or whatever is appropriate to consolidate those so that we could get started on that
So if I,
remodel.
pardon me for interrupting. My understanding is then the 1168, which has been known as the Health Maintenance Fund, is to be dissolved at the end of this year. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay, and you're asking permission to use those funds and to dissolve this fund at the end of the year? Is that my understanding or?
Right, right. It's been it was appropriated like you normally appropriate it last year with, mainly our operating expenses came out of that account. And so we were able to, I wanted to wait until about halfway through the year to make sure everything was going to be solid. And I've been able to move our operating expenses now into the HFI funding. So I think I'm good to go to use this to update.
Okay, it says I will defer to the auditor to determine the appropriate line for consolidation. Pardon? Okay. Okay,
And you do, and I apologize, and there's not, you don't, take your time.
no hurry is what I'm hearing.
Right, right, no hurry.
Just December 31st.
And there may be a line that's down in there, Debbie, that has been turned off for a lot of years that we can just stick it in, but just whatever makes the most sense with your accounting.
So Debbie, is that gonna be okay with you guys? Yeah? Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Susan, seconded by Betsy. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I also listened into your AmeriCorps interns this morning. I've served on some live committees with them. Very impressed. Very, very impressed with the help you're getting. And then yesterday with the Hagar's Hope, can't think of her name, Emily maybe, was helping Jamie out, was another one, I think, under the umbrella of the health department. Anyway, Jamie introduced her as her secondhand person, second brain with everything she's balancing. I thought she said she worked for the health department, maybe as an intern or, okay. And I may have the name wrong, but everyone that's introduced themselves to the health department, I've been very impressed with their work. And they're very studious and very energetic and have some great ideas. So kudos over there. Moving on, we have Shannon who's going to, there's a handout he provided, and he's going to, I think, review it and answer questions.
Well, I don't want to read it. You've got copies of it. The discussion I had with Joel about preparations for the hearing on July 25th was how do we, can we, should we, have we ever provided information to the public so they have more than just my taxes are going up and they come in and are not happy about that. And it was suggested that maybe we play the video of our July or our June 27th meeting, which I went back and looked at it. It's about 34 minutes of Shannon talking, and none of us need to sit through that again. It's a lot of good information, but that information was primarily for the council. And I showed my wife some of that and she goes, I'm not watching that. Just come up with something that makes sense, that is simple, that people can understand. So I came up with this list of frequently asked questions and FAQ that tries to just address basic questions that the public may have, something that we can hand to the public so they have it that day. And it might shed some light on some of the questions that they might have in their minds before they choose to address the tax council. So rather than play 34 minutes, I wanted to bring this to you guys to take a look at. If it makes good sense, let's print it double-sided and have it available for the public on the 25th. And there is one part in there that I do want to mention. And I addressed it in an email to the full council and the commissioners and to Debbie that, we have been budgeting and not taking supplemental lit into account. Supplemental lit is dollars that we receive from the state on a regular basis, and we've seen them increasing over the last couple of years. And I was told those are gonna go away. Well, when are they gonna go away? Why are they gonna go away? Where do they come from? So I started digging and asking questions, and I finally got in touch with somebody at one of the state representatives' office who pointed me in the direction of House Enrolled Act 1022 from 2022 that reduces the state income taxes from 3.23% to 2.9. And the goal is to be at 2.9% by 2027. I believe 2.9% by 2027. Yes. This is to reduce the amount of reserves in the state's coffers, which is where our supplemental lit distributions have been coming from. Which, if you haven't read that email, please do. It explains the amount of dollars we've received in supplemental lit over the last 4 years, $3.9 million. And included with that is the $1 million in ARP funds, and then the $1.8 million that we made in interest earned on deposits from our treasurer. It's real easy to see how we ended up with $6 million in reserves when you look at the money that has come in that we were not budgeting for. But our money's not coming back. The supplemental lit's gonna go away, and I would bet interest rates don't stay where they are for that long. So that reduction in state income taxes is more of a reduction than what we have proposed for local income taxes, which is what the House Enrolled Act 1022 was put in place to do. Take the burden off the state and put it on the local governments to get the money how they see fit. So with that, take a look at that. If you guys are in agreement, I suggest we print this out and hand it out or have it available for folks to review at our hearing on July 25th.
Is there a place to put it online?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Shannon, I think you did a really good job of taking a lot of complicated information here and just distilling it into something that's easily understood. So thank you for your effort.
My pleasure.
I would echo that it's obvious you've put a lot of time and thought. The only figure I was looking at that I had a question about is I think this year the tax rate is 3.15. I think since 2022, they slowed that down in the 2024 legislation. Their goal is 2.9 by 2029 has been the change since 2022, I believe. So instead of
Entirely possible, yeah.
yeah, but instead of 0.33, it doesn't make a lot of difference. It's 0.25, which is exact what you were looking at. So it would be a wash with the 0.25 if you look at what's actually happened since
Yeah,
2022.
it was 3.23 in 2022
Yes.
when the law was passed.
Yeah.
So they've reduced it by
They've
0.08 to
They
get
put
to
a
this.
pause maybe to allow locals to adjust.
If you go look at that law, it was written by some folks that were very complex because there's if, thens, and that's, and maybes and all kinds of things in that as to how it reduces and when. But the goal is to reach that goal.
Yes, I agreed. And even with the update that I gave, it's a wash of 0.25 and 0.25. Yeah, I agree with the supplemental. It's going to eventually phase down. I think one of the reasons we have 6 million balance, and we're probably the envy of a lot of East Central Indiana counties. We've used Baker Tilly's very conservative estimates. When in doubt, they go low on revenues. And we've put about $1 million back each year by literally balancing the budget. which I understand, but each year we balance the budget, we put another million back. And given where we started in 2019, which is not the envy of any counties in the state, which I think I looked up, we had 1.25 general fund balance when we took office, Susan, in 2019, Chad. 1.25%, and now we're looking at a 30% general fund balance. That's because we've been very fiscally responsible, and when in doubt, following Baker Tilly's great advice, we've been conservative. If you listen to the half-hour discussion from June 27th, you know where I stand. I'm not going to reiterate it. I'm going to come down on the side of the taxpayers. And just with the other lids that we agreed to with the EMS and the judicial, just with those two and doing nothing else with the $6 million balance, we're able to provide the 4% raise that we told the department heads to budget for just in those two alone. What complicates it is the numerous volunteer fire departments that are going to be knocking on our door with legitimate needs. Another department with legitimate needs, some of which you pointed out on your PowerPoint. We've been hammering away. We're making incremental notches and being more competitive with our salaries. But I agree, not enough. I agree with that. But
You mentioned volunteer fire departments, and I'll say it publicly because we said it publicly at the last meeting. At the last meeting, we had 4 requests from volunteer fire departments. As we sat here, we got a 5th for the Henry Township. And the following day, we got 5 more, well, following 2 days. So we've had a total of 10 requests for volunteer fire department
Oh,
money, for
it's-
township money.
the minority is the ones who did not ask for it. You know, how many are there? 16 something?
Yeah, 16 volunteer fire departments plus City of Newcastle. So 10 of 17 have asked for the dollars. I've had several calls wanting,
Are they past the deadline?
they are.
So that's set by the state, but not by us.
It
So
is,
They'll have
yeah.
to wait for a year from now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can anticipate a year from now getting the remaining 6, I would estimate. Any questions? Yeah, Shannon, kudos, you put a tremendous amount. I've done spreadsheets, but nothing the likes of which you've done in the past month, so we appreciate it, and it'll be interesting. I look for a interesting meeting on July 25th. Oh, I had a question. When we discussed on our June 27th, we mentioned 4:30 for us, the county council, to address and have the hearing on the EMS and judicial. We also discussed 5, and I read since then 5:30 for the other. Which is it? So we can be clear.
Joel advertised it, and I could go look at the advertisements
Okay.
if you look, hold on a second, I'll
I
find
just
it.
want to make clear to us that 4:30 will be an actual public hearing on the EMS and the judicial lit that we voted to move forward for a hearing at our last meeting in June 27th. And then we can actually do the rest of the business we have, adjourn that meeting, that hearing, vote on it. We only have to vote on it, the county council. Do the rest of our itinerary business for the rest of July. Five. 5 being our regular. You wanted a regular meeting? Everything else you wanted a work session. I'm looking at
I think
everybody,
just- I think just the
because there's going to be at least a half hour in
tax
between.
business.
It can be, because we're heading into, the next week, we're heading into budget hearings. Are there any loose ends you wanted a regular meeting, like we made June 27th, a regular meeting that was originally a work session? I'm asking everybody input. 5 o'clock work session. Is that okay with everybody?
So not a, it, so public
Yes,
hearing at 4:30 and then 5 PM work session.
Yeah, work
If-
session
if
5.
the
'cause we
public
advertised
hearing's
this
over?
at 5:30.
If the public hearing is over and if it's not.
Oh, it'll be over. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, just for the EMS and the judicial. No, well, yeah.
Not a
that
public hearing for public safety. we
That's
anticipate will be
5:30 and I
longer.
anticipate that to be well over an hour. A public hearing for the public safety lit. It's a public hearing for the Henry County Tax Council, including us, for public safety lit. And in between the two, we'll have a work session, which may be more of a pre-budget. And okay. We need to vote on that? We okay with that? We're okay with it. South Side okay with that?
Do we anticipate a lot of public comment?
At
I think
5:30, I expect a tremendous amount of comment.
I mean, people may not differentiate between the 5:30, 4:30. I mean, we may get people at 4:30 wanting to talk about.
And we can clarify.
So that was my comment. Will it be over in 30 minutes? If you have people who just don't know the ideal time to talk about different tax rates, which would be understandable.
It is understandable. I have confidence we can explain the difference between the two. If not, we'll turn it over to Shannon, who does an outstanding job of differentiating between the three. And the thing with the work session, it's flexible. As long as we're done by 5:30, because that is an advertised time for a public hearing. Okay. One of the things I wanted to point out, we discussed it shortly, is the Department of Labor exempt rule that on January 1st goes to $58,700 rounded. To be exempt, a person has to make that. That is going to affect our budget. And you mentioned that Addie is aware and is going to incorporate that into her report.
Yes, Addie is aware of the rules and is hard at work at developing the whole full report. She says she will have it in our hands by the 29th, which will give us a little time to look at it before she has agreed to present on August 5th. First thing in the morning, the full report to the council and any department heads that want to come, or anybody else, public meeting, I guess.
We got a text from Kyle. We want to really advertise the department heads that Addie will be here with Q&A because it will affect all employees. Her report on the morning of August 5th, Monday. It's one of our hearings that we have scheduled. So Addie Rooker from Wagner, Irwin, Shealy, Monday morning, August 5th. And again, we want to advertise that especially beforehand with our employees, our department heads and others. Anything else?
Yeah, did we set any parameters for the 5:30 public hearing with regards to public comment?
Our standard public comment is listed at the bottom of the itinerary, which is 3 minutes per. I think we have precedent for that, except the one time that was on July 30th of 2020, when that was voted to do away with that. But otherwise, there's longstanding precedent for that. Anything else? Public? Anybody? Now's your chance. Chad already had his piece and say last time. Well, thank you for showing up. Chad's an incoming councilman. Scott is an incoming councilman. Brian? No? You good with the PSAP? Things better over there? Looking better? Good. Good. Anything else? Stick around to sign because Debbie has some signatures. We'll see you on the 27th, and we'll be probably texting some updates on that.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
adjourned. Thank you, everybody present.